Hey guys, this is Baruch with Emet Permaculture. I wanted to show you what I've done with the progress I've made on the um, area around my house. I moved here about a year ago. Back then it was just this little blue trailer and the white addition you see behind me, and I started working the land here and clearing out rocks and thorns, planting trees. So I want to show you guys the progress I've made on that and the nursery that I started planting over the winter. Okay. So behind me you can see this apricot tree. That's the first one. I brought him in. He was about half this size and very hinky. Every time the wind would blow, and it blows a lot here because we're on top of a mountain, he would bend at about a 9-degree angle. And now he's come up to where he's probably about 8-9 feet tall. I don't know, two and a half meters, and he's gotten much sturdier. I think that by the time that the 3 years period is passed of Orla and we can eat the fruit, according to the Torah, that this tree will probably be about 12, 15 feet tall and something like that, and will actually be casting shade on the house, which is the original reason I planted him here. You can see that there's a drain that runs sideways there, but originally it was just dumping water on the ground here, and I wanted to put a tree here to catch some of that. Here's a closer look at the tree, at the apricot. You can see he's come up quite a ways this winter, this spring and summer, since I planted him last winter. There you can see a black locust. I planted him last winter. He was about 8 inches high or tall, and you can see how much he's grown since that time. He's starting to drop off his leaves now, getting ready for the winter. That's one of the reasons that I wanted to make this video right now, was to catch him before he dropped his leaves. All these guys. Here you can see a little area where I planted a bunch of trees that I grew from seed. I'll show you guys here in a little more detail. This is another robinia, black locust. I planted him this winter from a seed, and he's come up like this. So I'm hoping that next spring he'll grow like his bigger brother over there to probably about something like 10 feet, 10 feet tall, or maybe even more. These guys grow really fast. It's a really dense hardwood, so it's real nice. Over there, in the cleft between these two rocks, you can see I got a tagasaste tree growing. That's also called green lucerne because it's a nitrogen fixer, and it's great for animal feed, and of course enriching the soil. I think I'm the first guy in Israel to be growing these tagasaste trees here. I ordered a bunch of seeds from a South African farmer. Anybody who needs his information, hit me up. I can highly recommend them, and they came up great. Over here in the background you can see a carob tree. That's my neighbor's. It doesn't really grow much because he doesn't really water him, but it looks like he's getting some of the water from my irrigation line, so he started taking off a little bit. In the foreground you can see this is either a pear or one of those Asian apple pear things. Again, grew it from seed this year. Came up really nicely, grown really fast. Let's move up in here. So this whole area where you can see that it's kind of flat comes from it used to look like that over there, and I cleared out the rocks and moved them off here to this area to the left as much as possible, and started planting in the cleared out space. It was a great time. You can see down here, this is an acacia tree. I think it's either Fiderbiana or Acacia nilotica. I don't really remember, but it's one of the trees that they think are what the Ark of the Covenant were made of. So this is a lemon lime tree. At least that's what it was sold to me as, and it did have a bunch of lemon lime looking fruits that I pinched off because, again, until the 3rd year they're forbidden by the Torah, and I didn't want it taken away from its ability to produce branches and roots and stuff. And you can see that it hasn't really thrived, but it's okay. It survived the last winter, which was very rough. This is I foolishly planted it in a place that's exposed to the wind and the rain and all this other stuff. And it survived, and hopefully it puts down roots and becomes hardy over the next year. This is a real success story in my mind, because this was a cutting of a pomegranate tree, a little branch about 6 inches long, and so everything you see here grew over the last 8 months or so. So I'm real happy with that. Once it grows up a little more, I'm going to start pruning it out so it becomes more of a tree and less of a bush. You can see here I've cleared out more rocks. Up there I've been dumping compost. Anything organic from our house goes in there, and once it fills up with compost and with wood stove ash, I'm going to fill up the rest of it with earth and plant probably vegetables in there. Should grow real nice. Over there on the left side, you can see there's some grapes, Cabernet Sauvignon, that I planted. I'm hoping once they take off a bit, I'm going to run lines up to the roof that they can climb, and that's going to provide us with shade and of course grapes. This is a what the heck do you call it? It's a loquat. This is a loquat tree that I grew from a pit this year. You can see he's small, didn't grow much, but he's established himself, so hopefully next year he grows more. This is another one of those either pears or apple pears. I didn't really tag him, but he grew nicely, about 3 feet, which I was very happy, just from a seed. If you guys want to know how to germinate an apple or a pear or one of these Asian pear seeds, I got a real nice trick that worked really well for me. This is a Greek strawberry tree. I bought him already. He was just a little bit smaller than this. He hasn't really grown much this year, but I'm hoping he establishes himself and springs up a little more this year. Up there are 2 Paulownia tomentosa trees with those huge green leaves. That's a really interesting tree. It's a fast-growing hardwood, and the leaves are it's a nitrogen fixer, so the leaves, when it drops them, a lot of nitrogen goes in the ground. So I'm hoping to grow them for a few years and then maybe use them for either firewood or furniture. I don't know. Need to find a decent sawmill. You can see how fast it grows. You have this green stalk up top, and on the bottom you can see the stalks already turned woody. So that's real nice. These are both this year, so only several months old. Okay. In here I got some excellent weeds, but I have a bunch, maybe 15 little oak seedlings like this guy. I put in acorns last year and they came up nicely. I need to go back through here and clear out, for instance, I have these real nasty thorn vines, and we'll see when it gets a little colder, some of this vegetation ought to die off, and what doesn't, I'll help it out. Now over here, this is interesting. This is a fig tree. Again, grew it from cutting this year. Everything you see pretty much grew from that cutting. You can see, let's take a look. You can see it's getting ready to drop off its leaves. This is just the last ones left here. You can see they start turning black like this, and and then they fall off because it's getting cold. You can see here in this fork right there, right? You can see that little nub. That's the original thickness of the stick that I grew this from. So it rooted real nicely. You can see it's probably about an inch thick, maybe 3 times what it was when I originally rooted it. And I'm hoping to get some real good growth out of it next year, and again, some real good fruits. Behind it is this oak bush. Hasn't really grown much this year. I didn't plant this. It was here all the time. I just uncovered it when I cleared out the thorn bushes here. So we'll see. Now here I don't know what this guy is. Again, I grew him from a cutting. I had a bunch of cuttings. Most of them didn't take. A lot of lessons learned. But this guy, rooted, and he took off like gangbusters. And he grew a bunch of these little branches that you see lying on the ground here, which I'm hoping are producing energy that he's storing in his roots and using to grow his root system. But I'm not sure. I think it might be some kind of nut, maybe a pecan or something. I don't know. Anyway, we'll see what grows. Okay, up here is another pomegranate that I grew from a cutting, and he did okay. He didn't take off quite like his brother did closer to the road, but he's doing fine. I think he just needs to work a little harder to get his roots down into the ground. We're sitting here on top of kind of a rock outcropping, but it's limestone, so there's always various kind of cracks and barrels where soil collects. So I'm hoping next year he'll do better. Up here I have a robinia that failed to thrive. He's not dead, he's not alive, he's just hanging out here, looking sad and yellow. We'll see what happens next year. I did have some kind of bug infestation where they ate all the leaves, and it was very, very sad. Like all the melons died. So that may be what got into him. But I'm hoping next year it'll be better. This is another little oak that I uncovered, grew on his own. Real nice, it'll probably take about 20 years to grow to the size of a tree. And down there is what it's little tiny shoot that planted. If he survives the winter, next spring. It's an Asian tree that grows these little fruits that if you dry them out, they're like raisins. So obviously not actual raisins. Okay, up here is another pomegranate that I grew from a cutting, and he did okay. He didn't take off quite like his brother did closer to the road, but he's doing fine. I think he just needs to work a little harder to get his roots down into the ground. We're sitting here on top of kind of a rock outcropping, but it's limestone, so there's always various kind of cracks and barrels where soil collects. So I'm hoping next year he'll do better. Up here I have a robinia that failed to thrive. He's not dead, he's not alive, he's just hanging out here, looking sad and yellow. We'll see what happens next year. I did have some kind of bug infestation where they ate all the leaves, and it was very, very sad. Like all the melons died. So that may be what got into him. But I'm hoping next year it'll be better. This is another little oak that I uncovered, grew on his own. Real nice, it'll probably take about 20 years to grow to the size of a tree. And down there is what it's little tiny shoot that planted. If he survives the winter, next spring. It's an Asian tree that grows these little fruits that if you dry them out, they're like raisins. So you can see up here, there's another one of those oaks I grew from an acorn. It grew, actually this one grew a fair amount. This one's probably the best one of the ones that grew. Behind it are more of those nasty thorn vines that I need to cut out. I keep cutting them back, they keep growing, so we'll see. I really don't want to round up them or anything. Down in there I planted some stuff and it didn't thrive, and I think it's just because of how thin and rocky the soil is. And so I'm going to just put in more acorns this year. Acorns are tough, and I think they'll grow okay down in here. This is really probably about 4 inches of soil, and then it's just bedrock. But I think an oak will be able to work its roots down in there. This is an apple tree. My son wanted an apple tree, so we planted him. I got him full grown. He didn't really grow very much height-wise this year, but he did throw out a lot of new branches and got thicker. I think I'm going to be pruning him a fair amount this winter when he drops off the leaves. In there are 2 grow beds that I put in with the help of a bunch of boys from Yeshivat Mir. So thanks a lot to them. There's some mixed results. Sometimes some of them, there's a lot of little robinias that came up. I planted these quite late. I planted them something in like July. So I'm hoping they'll be able to survive the winter. Some of these guys, I'm sure they will, and some of them, I'm not so sure. But I'll pull this apart and harvest them out of there and plant them. Some of them, like this one, this robinia here got huge. That's just all this year's growth. Here's a dog. No, Kishta. Kishta. That's the neighbor's dog hanging out in here. Nice and soft blanket. We're not the best of friends, me and him. He's sort of an idiot, but mostly harmless. All right, some more robinias, some mangoes you can see coming up here. In there are a bunch of Kishta, no? Idiot dog. In there are a bunch of, in all that grass, there's a bunch of tamarinds you can see in there. I need to really pull these guys out here as soon as it starts raining a little bit and put them in our plot, because it never freezes there, and here it does. And if it freezes on them, they're dead. You see something's been trampling in here. I probably should have built these walls up a little bit higher. You can see some little tagasastas in there and stuff like that. I'll show you guys the older grow beds. I really just didn't have enough time this year, because what with clearing out all these rocks, you can see this is all that's left of those rocks. It needs to go all the way to the oak tree. And you can see I've been breaking them. I took a little break, no pun intended. I took a little break from breaking them, but you can see where I've been fracturing them and using the smaller rocks that I've been fracturing them into to build grow beds. So that took a lot of time and effort, and getting the earth in here, filling the bags, gathering seeds, all that stuff this year should be a lot more efficient. But even so, I mean, I got some decent results in places. Oh, by the way, up in there, all that greenery, I didn't clear any of this out. The gray water from the bathroom dumps into this little draw, and that stuff sprung up, and a bunch of it actually is tomatoes that I need to harvest. A bunch of them is these little red berries, which are poisonous, but a bunch of them are also these nice tomatoes. You can sort of see some in there. I really don't want to get into all these thorns right now, unless I have to. Here you can see some here, like that. Tomatoes, full of tomatoes. Probably gonna get I don't know, 30 pounds of tomatoes out of there, which will be nice. Anyway, back to the main project. You can see in here a lot of robinias, some of them quite decent size, lots of tagasaste. Got a big purple milk thistle growing in the middle there, and then whatever this thorn thing is, I'm going to be killing them off when I harvest these things, which they're growing in bags. So I'm just gonna pull this apart from the side and pull the bags out, and some of those raisin trees also. There's my daughter observing, commenting. Easy shalom. There you go. Okay, this is an oak tree. This was the only tree that was growing in this whole patch when I moved in. You can see I trimmed it out. We got a lot of acorns going, which I'm going to harvest here in probably about a month when they get ready, when they separate from the cap easily. Here's a bunch of mess created by me and the kids, which I haven't really gotten around to neatening up yet. Once I harvest these, I will. Here we got a bunch of raisin trees. These guys had a hard transition to the bags. It was hot weather, and I couldn't get around to it for there, so they I don't know, some portion of them died, but some of them are still alive, and we'll see what survives this winter. You can see a lot of, I'm not really sure how to keep the bad stuff from growing along with the good stuff. So I just let it all grow, and then when I harvest it, I pull out the bad stuff. You can see there's apple in here. There's more of those acacia trees. Some acacia trees got really big. This one really got huge. Some tagasasta trees in there, those little sticks. More oh, these are moringas. Again, I'm gonna need to pull them out before it gets really cold, because they will die if they stay here. And just a second. Okay. So more of these polonias. A lot of polonias. And another mixed planting bed. I think next year I'm going to just plant one of each thing in every bed, but this is such an experimental year. Then this is another really big tagasasta. So I grew some herbs here on the left, some mint and things like this, and some melissa, which I harvested most of them. Some grew back, so I'm going to harvest again. A bunch of moringa trees. A lot of moringas came up. And in this one, you can see this is the last one. I've got a lot of moringas and a bunch of loquats over there. These are just the pits from the loquats we ate. And that's it. So that's basically been the tour. My first year growing from seed, setting up this nursery, and some lessons learned. I mean, I would have tried to do everything in stages instead of all at once. Breaking all the rocks first, and then building all the beds second, and then bringing the earth and filling the bags. It turned into a bit of a mess. Also, I ended up planting some of them late, so I don't know. I think they will probably survive the winter, but I'm not sure. But overall, went actually a lot better than I thought it would. I used regular riverbed soil instead of real planting mix, just because of affordability. But it went well. I've got probably about I don't know, 500 to 800 trees here, so that's going to be it's going to cover quite a bit of ground. All right, this is Baruch from Emet Permaculture and Nursery, and you guys please drop me a line, drop me a comment, questions, anything else. Have a good one.